And then I found another way to teach people about science, both children and adults, by doing education outreach for science research projects. So I'm on the science team with the scientists, and my job is to translate the science to the K-12 community and to the public. So that's what I do now, and I was lucky enough to find the penguin research team that goes to Antarctica every year. So I go to Antarctica every year, and I work with the penguins, and then I have a very active website, and I'll tell you about that when I get there. So this is my website here. It has all our science on it, and this PowerPoint can be yours, so don't feel the need to make any notes or copies. So Trang has it on the slide that's on her computer now, so she can give it to you.
Yep.
And my job is to connect research to the classroom. So just in case you're not familiar with Antarctica, it is the South Pole, not the North Pole, it's the South Pole. It's a continent, 5th largest continent, and it's much larger than the United States and Mexico combined. Most people don't realize that if you were to cut it down the middle, and as a cross section, that most of the continent is covered with 2 miles of ice. Not a little bit of ice, but 2 miles of ice. So think of the entire United States and Mexico covered with 2 miles of ice. That's a great deal of ice. It took millions and millions and millions of years for this ice cap to grow, and it is now starting to melt more rapidly than we've seen in the last 10,000 years. The actual South Pole is at an elevation of about 9,000 feet, and the continent, much of the continent is depressed under sea level. Here's the sea level here. Much of the continent is depressed because of the weight of that ice. Many people believe that as the ice melts, this continent will, we use the term rebound, or come back up, because the weight of the ice will be less, and that will help counteract any of the sea level rising due to the melting of this cap. So besides the land, which is covered with 2 miles of ice, the surrounding ocean is extremely cold, and the ice grows in the winter and shrinks in the summer. This is the largest single seasonal event in the world. We are in the middle of winter. Remember, the southern hemisphere, the seasons are reversed. So in the February, which will be winter for us, this is the middle of summertime down there, and the ice is at its minimum or the less. Next picture I show you will be the sea ice as it freezes, the ocean freezes in August, which is the middle of our summer. Make a mental picture in your head and think about how big you think that might be. Well, it's this big. So the amount of ocean that freezes doubles the size of Antarctica. It's quite an event. It also isolates this continent, as it has for thousands of years, makes it very difficult to get there. So nobody lives there. There are no indigenous people who live here. There never has been. And the exploration of it did not really occur until the late 1800s, when people were able to get into the area, mostly during this time, with their ships. They cannot get in this time, and even now it's very difficult, even with our powerful icebreakers, to get to the continent over the ocean in the wintertime. This ice is very, very important. The size of it is important for the penguins and the seals and the animals that live there, because this gives them a platform to be out of the Antarctic area in the wintertime, because this continent is completely dark for the 6 months of winter, and the animals have to get out here so that they can see and get into the open ocean for their food. Anyway, this is what that sea ice looks like when it is solid. In the spring, it breaks up and floats away. Here you can see a few penguins out there, because this is where they live. Just like the birds here live in the trees, these birds live on the ice. Everybody knows penguins cannot fly, so they have to sit somewhere, and they sit on these ice floes. So if this ice goes away, it would be like chopping down all the trees. You would not kill the birds, but they would have to go someplace else. So just like the penguins, this is where they live. If that ice melts and goes away, we will destroy their habitat. global warming and conserve the sea ice. All right, so here's another picture of the penguins out on the sea ice. Again, this is where they live. Their food is underneath these ice floes. The krill and the small fish that they eat, they're about this big, live underneath the ice. So they just float around, take the winds and the currents, and they don't care where they go because the food is underneath. But once a year, they come ashore to build their nests. They showcase a few of the species of penguins that live there. This is the Gentoo penguin. If you saw Mr. Popper's penguins, this is the penguin that was in that movie. You can red beak here and white eye patch. That's a giveaway for these guys. Other than that, he took his head off, he would look like all the other penguins. So the only way to distinguish these penguins is by their head. Otherwise, they look all alike. Here again, a chin strap. They've got this here. You take away his head, he looks like all the other penguins. And they also come ashore to build their nest. And the Adelie, same thing. Take away their head, they look exactly like all penguins. This is the species that I work with. You can see their chicks here. They're just as sweet as can be. So they live out on that sea ice, but when they have to breed, they come ashore. They build nests out of rocks and hatch their eggs and raise their chicks. You might have also heard of the emperor penguins, March of the Penguins. Anybody? Yay! So it's really a great movie. If you have not seen it, I hope you will watch it. It's about this bird here, the emperor, which actually comes up to my waist. They are very, very, very large birds, absolutely magnificent creatures. They do not come ashore they do not build a nest, they do not come ashore. They live their entire life out on the sea ice. So if that sea ice goes away, these birds will be very much in trouble because they never, ever, ever come onto land. Must have that sea ice for their entire life and breeding cycle, and if this ice melts, then they will be in trouble. So we need to protect them as well. So the Antarctic, just to give you a little bit of back history of what's happening there. Here is the part of Antarctica, which is the most northern part. So South America is right here. And here is the Antarctic Circle right about here. And we're starting to see some extreme warming events in Antarctica, particularly in this area here. If you've heard of anybody here of the Larsen A ice shelf breakup? Okay, it was a huge event. These are glaciers that are on the land, and then the glaciers move on to the water, and they become an ice shelf. And the Larsen B ice shelf was right here. It's giant. It did not break off as an iceberg. It simply disintegrated. So this is what it looks like from a satellite. This was in 2002. January 31, we saw melt ponds on this in the ice shelf here. And in the course, I'll just go quickly through these. February 17th, a few days later, February 23rd, and March 5th, the entire shelf had disintegrated. Not so much broken off like an iceberg, although that is starting to occur as well, the much rapid pace around the continent, but this thing just plain collapsed. This was in 22. This is Larsen C right here, and now Larsen C this year is starting to do the same thing. So we are seeing some very dramatic episodes and evidence of climate change in this region. I think you've seen these before, but if everything melts, this is kind of what our coastline will look like on the eastern seaboard. I'm sure you've seen pictures like this. I don't mean to alarm you, but these are the predictions. Florida's kind of look like that, so Florida will kind of go on because there's a river that 2 miles of ice. It's a great deal of ice, and these events are also occurring on Greenland, the Greenland ice cap, which is melting much more rapidly than Antarctica. Okay, well, let's talk about penguins. So here's where I work. A lot of our work is how these birds are responding to changes in their habitat, changes in the weather, changes in that sea ice. So my research is about that, and then I also add the component of education outreach. I work on an island. This happens to be Cape Royds on Ross Island in the Ross Sea, and you can see it's volcanic, so it is a volcanic island, sort of like Hawaii, only not quite because it's really cold, and you can see there are 0 plants, no plants, none, 0, no moss, lichen, no nothing, no plants, nothing. It is absolutely bare, except in the volcanic rocks are pretty treacherous. But you can see everywhere where there's brown, that's where the penguins are. So somebody tell me what the brown is. Think like a fourth grader. What's the brown?
Somebody?
There's no dirt in Antarctica, so what's the brown? I got 5,000 penguins here. What's the brown?
Yeah,
It's their poop.
Yeah.
So this is 10,000 years. 10,000 years of poop, because remembering it never rains there.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is frozen, so the birds poop, it freezes, then they poop, then it freezes, then they poop, and it freezes.
Oh.
So it has built up for 10,000 years of penguin poop. It's frozen, so I don't have to smell it. But we can always tell as we fly around where the penguins are because of the brown or guano stains. Anyway, here's where I work. There's about 5,000 penguins in this area. This is the frozen sea ice right here, which will melt as the season goes along, and the birds can have access to open water. Here's where I live. It's a tent. So if you are interested in this kind of work, camping might
Yes.
be something you have to do. You can see that there's no running water here, and I have no electricity. Here's my outhouse, which is basically a bucket for number one and a different bucket for number two. I sleep in this tent here with no heat, and I'm there for about 2.5 months. Can't take a shower, and can't wash my hair, and no electricity, and no fresh food. But by golly, I do have wireless internet, so here's my satellite thing here. It's connected
Isn't that
to
amazing?
the outside world. Here is our active volcano. This is Mount Erebus. It erupts about twice a day, actually. So it's in my background, and this is our little camp there at Cape Royds. The males come ashore in early November. We try to get there before the first egg is laid. That's an important date for us. They build a nest, and they do a little courtship dance, and they look for the mate from last year, but I'm just here to say that if Sally doesn't show up, Sue will do just fine. So usually not made for life. They build a nest out of these rocks. They lay an egg, they lay 2 eggs actually, and then it takes about 30 days for the chicks to hatch. You can see here the chick is just coming out of the shell. The parent will not help it, but it will hold it on its feet to keep it warm off the rocks and help it stay warm as it comes out of the shell. So there's one just hatching. The first hatching date is also very important to us, as we're wanting to see if these things are changing as the climate changes. So far we see it vary, but we haven't seen a big trend one way or the other, but that's part of the work that I do. I also sit there and wait for the birds to feed their chicks. Sometimes they drop it on the ground, and that makes it easy for me. Other times I have to see it go into their mouths, and this is krill because it's pink, and these little black dots are the eyeballs from the krill. So I can tell that. And if it's silver, then it's fish. And what they're eating is very important to us, because as that sea ice is changing, the food source for them is changing. We can't be out there in the ocean. I can't follow the birds to see what they eat. In the olden days, they would kill the bird and open up their stomach to see what they eat, but of course we don't do that now. We never harm them. These are highly protected birds, nor would we even consider doing that. So this is my job, to sit there and wait to see what their chicks are being fed. The chicks grow extremely fast. Yes?
About how close will the birds let you get?
They're not afraid of me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now, if I sit down, they'll come and touch my clothes and play with me. So when they are on land, they have no predators. So since they have no predators, they're not afraid of me. If I reach out and try to touch them, they will attack me. But I just don't do that. Well, sometimes I do. But we put things on their backs, and we weigh and measure them. So sometimes I do handle them, and I handle the chicks. But for the most part, we do not touch them. They're not pets. They're not in my lap. I'm not holding them and cuddling them. And they don't come up to me and go, "Hi, Jean, where you been?" I mean, it doesn't happen. They'll wag their tail, and it's like they're not pets. These are wild animals, and they need to stay wild. So we do not interfere at all in what's going on. And sometimes that's very hard for me,
Good
because I
question.
see animals either starving or having trouble, and so I'm not allowed to interfere. Otherwise, it's not natural, and we're there to be observers of the natural world. You can see these guys get pretty fat pretty fast. They multiply their weight by 30 in 50 days. So So that's like a 7-pound baby weighing 210 pounds in a month and a half. So that's a massive, massive, very, very extraordinary gain. These are, they grow fast because they have to. The summer is very, very short, and they've got to get on their way. I show this picture, and everybody thinks these are dead chicks. No, they're just so full of food, they're sleeping it off. Like teenagers, they have filled themselves their food like this, and they're all snoozing here because that's what they do, is sleep and very, very funny birds. As they get older, you can see their wings get larger, their feet get big. This is called my teenager thing, awkward teenagers with big fat feet and don't know how to act, and they're just not jolly. And then the next thing he's going to do is molt into his adult plumage. So when the birds are like this is very, very dense feathers that are fuzzy, very fuzzy if you touch them. They will keep this bird warm, but they will not keep this bird dry. So this bird cannot go into the water to get his food yet. He has to stay on land until he molts into his adult plumage here. So these feathers are waterproof, and then they are able to go into the water. So here you can see he's still got some of his chick feathers here, and he's pretty much ready to go into the water as he is. The chicks are very sturdy. Penguins are very sturdy. Here you see a snowstorm. This is a common snowstorm. This is a chick. This is a chick. This is a chick, and this is a chick. These are all chicks that have just hunkered down and let the snow come around them. The snow acts as an insulation once it's a coat for them, and will keep the wind off. And those feathers are very dense, very thick, and once the snow just coats them, there's no problem for them. They just, when the storm is over, they just shake it off, and off they go, as long as the snow does not melt. So as long as it stays snow and frozen, they'll be okay. But if the sun, for some reason, came out and melted all this water and they became wet, then they would be cold, and we would lose them because they can't. This is not keeping them dry. But mostly they just shake this off. There's a little buddy here. There's another buddy here. So once the storm is over, they seem to be okay. Due to climate change, we're seeing, now again, this is just not much of a storm here, about this much snow, no problem. But we're starting to see some bigger storms, and the birds can't handle the storms. Here's an adult bird on a nest, on a chick or an egg. Can't tell from here, but she will not leave her nest. They cannot leave the nest because the chick will freeze, or the egg will freeze. So they are programmed to stay on that nest. We're starting to see these storms. This is more like 18 inches of snow here. This bird is on the nest, standing up. She cannot get out here. She would have to fight her way out, and she probably wouldn't be able to do it. So remembering I'm not allowed to interfere in any way, so I crawled over there and dug her out, as well as all the other birds. That this was, I can't stand this, so we did actually dig these birds out with our hands. We couldn't go in with anything other than that because we didn't want to disturb what's underneath her, but we could not stand this. And sometimes we're not there, and so we do lose birds when the storms are too big. We're also starting to see a great deal of melting of the snow behind the birds. The birds don't realize that this melting is going to occur, so they build their nests right in the place where the stream is going to come off the glacier and wash their nests away. If they don't wash their nests away, they're going to be sitting in the water coming over their nest. This bird happens to, if the water doesn't get any higher, she'll probably be okay. This bird is actually sitting on an egg, and it's just sitting there. It's not going to affect her, but the egg is gone. She can't keep the egg warm. You can see here the egg is being washed in the cold water. It's gone. And there were many, many drowning chicks here as well. So again, there's nothing we could do here to help, but this is another evidence of climate change that is affecting the penguins. My education page has a lot of fun things on it for students or people. There's activities for everybody at every level. I have an adaptation, so when students, you're not in the classroom yet, but when you're ready to go into the classroom, these kinds of things are out there. If you decide not to use, you want to use penguins, I got this, but I'm going to show you lots and lots of other things for students to get involved in. Adaptation page, I take the journal articles and then I rewrite them for a 6th grader. So I'm don't know how many of you have read scientific journal articles, or just a little on the dense side, very long words and dizzy kind of graphics. Write them so that, a lot of pictures, so that everybody can understand the science that's going on. I also ask some field questions. So, for instance, here's a field question. Like the kids can pretend to be a field scientist. So, for instance, here's the picture I show them, and I say, one of the observations is that the nests are about 1 meter apart, center to center to center. And that seems to be consistent throughout the entire colony, so why aren't the nests closer together? Why aren't they further apart? Why do the birds build their nests about 1 meter apart? And the students come up with brainstorming, all sorts of ideas, why they think this is the case, and then I ask them to design an experiment to test one of their ideas. And then when they're ready, they can go and get the answer that we came up with, because we're there all the time and we had to answer the question ourselves. We don't know until we do some testing and more observations. So anybody have an idea for me? Why aren't they closer together? And why aren't they further apart? You ready?
I'm sorry?
Go ahead. Anybody with
I would guess that it's exactly 1 meter apart, and maybe that gives them the exact space for the penguins to grow up and not to interfere with each other. And then at the same time, I think 1 meter away from each other may be able to, they can each stay warm.
Okay, that's excellent. That's a large part of it. They are extremely territorial. And if I were to get within striking range, if I would sit right here and she could reach me, she would pick it. Now she's not going to get off the nest. They do not get off the nest for any reason. In fact, if I went in there and picked her up and took the egg out and put her back down, she would still stay on the nest. They're programmed that hard. However, if I get and touch her, get close to her, where she can get me, she will. So that's why they're 1 meter apart, because if they could touch each other, they would bite each other. So they're just far enough apart so they can't reach each other. Otherwise, they would be attacking each other. So the next question is, well, then why aren't they further apart? Well, they're not further apart because we have a predatory bird known as a skua who will come and land here and try to get the egg for the chick. And this way, the neighbors can help out. So if they're too far away, oops, I thought I'd fight that long picture. If they're too far away, that skua can get in there and grab those eggs and chicks without anybody helping them. And so that is why they're 1 meter apart. There's lots of pictures. This is, for instance, a picture of the feathers under the microscope, and people have never seen a penguin feather, so it's interesting to see what it looks like under the microscope. This part here is the only part you see on the bird, because this is the waterproof part. All this other stuff is down against their skin to keep them warm. So interesting that they're packed like the shingles on your roof. And actually, when you pick them up, you cannot get your finger into the feathers. It's not like picking up a fluffy chicken. They're like picking up a football more. Working your fingers into the feathers is actually very, very difficult. Here's another picture of that feather from more of a larger perspective. They have about 100, you can do this with your fingers and your thing, and you were to count the feathers in there, there would be about 100 feathers, as opposed to a chicken, which would have about 6. They're the most densely covered birds in the world. They have a brood patch right here on their belly where there are no feathers, and that's where the eggs go in. Remembering that it's not the feathers that are warm, it's the bird's body that's warm. So it's not our shirt that's warm, it's our body that's warm. The shirt just holds the warm fin, feathers just hold the warm fin. So they put the eggs right against their body here and keep it warm and then wrap the feathers around it. The size of this brood patch is only enough for 2 eggs. So they can only lay 2 eggs. If there are 3 eggs for some reason, and sometimes we see it, then 1 egg is always out here and will not hatch because they can't keep it warm enough. We also have a did you know thing that tells them how we know what we do, about how we know what we say. And our students should be skeptical when we say, it takes 23 pounds of food to raise a chick. And you should tell them, how do you know that? Why should they just believe everything we we say. We should train them to be skeptical and ask for that evidence. What's your evidence on that? And here's how we do it. We show the science. This is at a corral. Put a fence around this breeding group right here. And you know those chips that they put in horses and dogs inside their skin? It's a little electronic chip. Well, this, when they come out, this hoop reads that chip and tells us that penguin 423 has left the colony, or penguin 423 has come into the colony. So it tells us when they come and go. And then they're also stepping on a scale that will tell us how much they weigh. So we know how much they weigh when they come in, know how much they weigh when they go out. So that's how we figure out how much they carry the chicks. So all of those questions are answered showing the sign. A lot of these here are the field questions. I won't go through those. And then I do live Skype calls from the colony. So here I am in my tent talking to some, I don't know, probably there might be first graders. So from the colony with the penguins around me or our tent, if it's in bad weather, I connect with kids all over the world, telling them about Antarctica, climate change, penguins, the research.
Is that awesome?
And sometimes they just want to know where I go to the bathroom. And show them that too. So kids are pretty funny.
Yeah.
And then they get to see the penguins because I can be very close to them. And I think it engages and it connects these kids to their world outside of Delano, Texas, or wherever we were talking. So I think this part of my work is very important to me as I connect with children and share with them penguins in the field, live and go on. I also have nest checks so kids can adopt a penguin nest, and then I'll take a picture every day of that nest, and it goes onto the web. So January 8, 9, 10, 11, et cetera, they can watch the chicks grow. And it's a pair that has a band, so I know if the male's on the nest or the female's on the nest, so they can graph the foraging trips and see how long it takes the birds to get the food that they're bringing back. So they do graphing here. They can they count the days between the egg hatch, you know, all that stuff. All the stuff that we would do as field personnel, they can do over the internet because these pictures get posted every day for them. So my job is just to go down there and take a picture, nest 22 or 55, and walk around and do this, and then get it up on the whiteboard. So anyway, there's the eggs, and then when they finally hatch, that's always that's always a fun day when the eggs start to hatch. They grow really fast. I also do activities. I won't go into these so much, but part of my job I mentioned that I have to tell whether they're feeding krill or feeding fish. So if it's silver, it's fish. So I just chip the fish. If it's this pink stuff with the eyes, then it's krill. What we found in our colony. So here's a question for you. What we found in our colony was at the beginning of the season they would feed krill. So I'm chicken krill, and all of a sudden, oh, fish, and then fish, and then back to krill. And we could not figure out why they switched from krill to fish to krill. So this is an activity I developed for the kids to come up with some of those answers. Anybody with an idea, just why would they switch? Fish, I mean, just throw out an idea.
Well, yes, depending on the season.
The time of the year in which fishing can go in.
Perfect. The fish, maybe the krill went away, and the fish were there. Maybe there was no fish, and they prefer the fish, and the fish came, and then their fish went away. Maybe it's nutritional. This time in the chick's life, they need the nutrition of the fish, and so they go after the fish. There are lots and lots of ideas, but each time we came up with an idea ourselves, we were knocking it down. Then the fish and the krill are out there in the same amounts all the time, so we knew that those studies had been done. So it wasn't because the krill and fish were coming and going. We also knew it wasn't nutritional because for some reason the other colonies didn't do this. The other colonies stayed with krill the whole time. So this wasn't some kind of program change in food. We tried many different things. It took us 3 years to figure out why they switched, and it was the presence of the whales. So minke whales are down there, and they are krill eaters. Minke whales eat krill. So when the whales came into the area, the minke whales were kind of surrounding the krill swarms, and the birds changed to fish. And when the minke whales went away, the birds went back to krill. So it was the presence of those whales. But it took us it seems so obvious, doesn't it, when I say it? It took us 3 years to figure that out. there's an activity for the kids. All right, and I think I talked about that. Okay, I also have teaching PowerPoints for kids. So if you are in a classroom and you want to teach about penguins, these are PowerPoints that are up there with the teaching notes, teaching what you would say, for instance, in the notes. So anybody can do these things. They're very, very easy. All the pictures there, just use them, do whatever you want to do. There's lots more of them here. I just showed this one slide. So there's several of these for people to do. And here's our current problem. So here is early October. We have a camera that takes a picture every day of our colony. And this is early October, and there is no penguins here. So we look at this picture over the internet, waiting for the penguins to come. Then in late October, you can see a few penguins have started to show up. December, now we've got all the penguins are starting to hatch. We've got a lot of activity here. Then here's a close-up of what that looks like with the chicks and everything. And then, oops, back to no penguins. So where do they go? Well, the only thing we know for sure is they're not there. And they probably go out onto the ice somewhere, but we don't know where they go. We're not there. We can't follow them. Satellites won't pick them up. It's dark, and the satellites cannot pick up the individual birds yet, not quite yet, maybe later. Nonetheless, our current research right now, this year, is we've got 160 birds. We put this little thing on them. It goes around their leg. Here's where we do have to catch them. And attach this deep thing around their leg. You can see it's about as big as a ring. And there are 160 birds are wearing this right now. It's a geolocator. It just records where they are. It does not send us. I can't sit here and dial up and see where they are. It is only recording, which means this bird better come back next year. It better have this on it. It has to have worked. I have to find that bird. I have to catch that bird, get this thing off, and get the data off it. So we put out 160 of these before I left. This is just about 2 months ago. And we have no idea how many we are going to get back, if they work, and what they're going to tell us about where this bird is, or like right now. They're out there somewhere, but we're going to find out where their winter feeding grounds are. Why is that important for us? Because if we choose to protect this bird, which we choose to protect this bird, we also have to protect their feeding grounds. So we have to say, you can't fish there. You can't put pollution there. But we have to know what those feeding grounds are. Antarctica and the Southern Ocean is a very large place. So this is our current research right now. Next year, if I come back, I'll have some data to show you. And we'll know where they went. But we've got to protect that area as well as the land where they are breeding. So we want the fishing industry to stay away. But we have to prove first where that is. Well, that's what we're doing right now. So I wanted to share with you some other things. I know you're interested in technology in the classroom. How many of you know about citizen science projects? Anybody familiar? So this is how you're going to get your kids interested in science. And they're not all science projects, but many of them are citizen science. It says science, but some of them have other applications. So even if you're not teaching science, there are things for your kids to get involved online, helping people, helping organizations with gathering information. They need kids to do this. Kids are usually pretty good at this. So I'm just going to run through a few of them that are out there right now for you to kind of put into your head. Don't take notes or write them down. When you're in the classroom, Google citizen science projects for kids, and the current ones will all come up. But let me just show you what's out there and what's going on. Oh, let's do penguins first. So, penguins, their numbers are changing, their habitat is changing, and they're moving. So this is in response to climate change. We're taking pictures of them. We have hundreds of thousands of pictures, and we need the kids to help us count the birds to see what's going on. So this is called Penguin Lifelines, and from here you go to Penguin Watch, and you can adopt a colony, which means they want your money, but forget that unless the kids want to send in their dimes or whatever. But the big one here is help annotate. So adopt a colony, give them money, help annotate, help them count. This is what it looks like. You're going to end up at Penguin Watch. Get started here. we have these 4 penguins. These are the penguins I showed you. The kings are different, but anyway, these are the penguins that I talked about. Here are the colonies, where they are, that we are counting. This is how we do it. There's a camera at each one of these colonies taking pictures like 3 times a day. And what they ask you to do is get onto those pictures and count the birds using your computer. Orange for adult, green for a chick, and yellow if you see, oh, here's an egg, so you mark them. So the kids can do this. They can do it on their tablets, they can do it on their computers, they do it with the counting thing, and then they submit this data. This is real help. Look at all of these colonies, all pumping out 2 and 3 pictures a day. This is way too much for the scientists to manage. We absolutely need help here. So if your students decide to do this, even if you're in a different class, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be a science class to do this. This is the kind of work that gets kids involved in what's actually happening in the world. Here's another one. Tom Nod is a good one because this is more about social things happening. For instance, one of their things, they use the satellites to find the refugee boats in the Mediterranean. And they need people to look at those, the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pictures. No boat, no boat, no boat. Yeah, oh, here's a boat, boom, click on it. And you don't have to count it, you just take your thing and click on it, and then the computer records the lat long, and someone else then figures out if that's a fishing boat or a refugee boat. But they're using citizens like us, or kids, to find those boats. Or when earthquakes happen, they use the satellite pictures to have people find, oh, here's a building that's down, here's a road that's damaged, here's a river that's flooding, here's someone that looks like they're in trouble, here's a horse that's on the loose, and they use those satellite pictures like the day after, the day of, to scan these areas, put those pictures out to kids, because the kids are very good at this, and get that information right away, so they can tell the ground people to get to this area because there's a building down. Because when these things happen, like the one in Nepal, the ground people couldn't get to anything, they had trouble, but then we tell them, go here, go here, go here, and there's some problems going on. So that's not fun. And citizen science has been around for a really long time. You know, and NASA's had people do stuff, and I'm going to tell you about them. And here's why, this is why it's good. More eyes, more places. The kids are part of the eyes, and they're part of something that is real. This is not textbook. This is not what happened last year. This is happening right now, and the data they generate helps the scientists or the people on the ground knowing about the crops or this or that or whatever. So anyway, this is it's public, it's for open to everyone, but they really like the kids to do it. It helps detectability. So for instance, if the satellites can't pick that up, so they use a lot of kids to do backyard stuff. What's in your backyard? If you see this bird, you report it to the backyard people, and then they can do bird counts this way. And there's just not enough people to be everywhere, but a lot of kids, and kids like to do this. So one of these things is here, when the oil spill was, they were out identifying where birds were that were oiled up. They needed help, so this was part of what was happening here. With pelicans that needed help, and so they went onto the website, and then the authorities could go there and take care of them. So Nature's Notebook, they're looking for all sorts of things. Here's some, you look on your region here, and then they'll tell you, oh, we need to know when the lilacs bloom, or we need to know when the dogwood's blooming. We need to know when the sunflowers come out. We need to know when you first see your first bee or a hummingbird or whatever it is. So kids get into that mode, and they just use their own backyards, their walk to school, their school's grounds to note these things. They generate data that looks like this. This is generated by the computer and lets people know what's going on a global sense. They're looking for pigeons. They want to count the pigeons. Are there pigeons everywhere? I guess that'd be yes. There's pigeons everywhere. So we want to see how those numbers are changing. So have the kids count the pigeons in the schoolyard or in their yard or the park or whatever. So a lot of these, here's another one here. This one is, what is this one? I can't remember what this was. Oh, bird count. So again, they're looking for birds, and seasonally, this is roadkill. Have you ever heard of that? If you see roadkill, they want it reported. So kids just, you know, you can either take a picture of it or just mark it on the map or put down the line phone with a GPS in it, everybody can get that lot of land, everybody can take a picture, but even if you can't take a picture, they're very interested in roadkill. And they keep track of how many animals, what kind of animals, and helps with population dynamics for those animals in that area. So this is a national one here, and they are asking for people to send in the data. That's a weather one. There's one about beavers and rats and moles, and they also want to know when the buds come out or the flowers bloom, because this is really a big thing with climate change, that the flowers are blooming earlier. The buds on the trees are coming out earlier, and they want to know if this is around an average or if it's a trend, and it is a trend to continue to be earlier. So spring is coming earlier everywhere, and students who are saying, yep, I see my first green leaf, just use the trees in the schoolyard, use those trees, and they record it every year, send it in, and that's how they're tracking these things. Nature's Notebook again. The nests, watching the nests, looking for nests, counting the birds. I have 3 nests in my backyard. Anybody else have nests going on? I've got 3. I'm so honored that the birds have selected my backyard, maybe because I don't have any cats. But anyway, so I get on, I say, yes, I have 4 eggs in this one and 2 eggs in this one, and they laid these eggs on this day, or I saw the nest on this day. And it just helps the Audubon Society or the Cornell Lab of Ornithology know what's going on around the country. eBird, you can, after you mark your data, then they generate a graph that shows the progression of these birds as they're migrating. So this is a movie that's generated for each one of the birds. So you put your data point in here, and then the computer generates this, so the kids can actually see those birds move across the United States or go north or go south or whatever they're doing based on their data. This is their data. It's them. It's not anybody else. It's their data. And their data points become part of this graph. So this makes the kids feel like they're part of something. Because guess what? They are. And it is important. Monarch butterflies. The monarch butterfly thing's been around for years. The ongoing worm watch. People want to know when the worms are coming out just to see what's happening. These are all schools here, and they're watching the worms. First time they see a worm in the spring. The flower things, first time the tulips or the big whatever. So the Appalachian Mountain Club runs that as well. And help people do it. Bees are big. Everybody know about what's happening for the bees? They were having a lot of trouble keeping the hives together, and the bee populations are going down. So there's a big national push to keep track of what's happening with those bees. So kids are counting. Well, I saw a bee today, and it was on this flower. Another bee today, of course, here in the Central Valley. We use bees commercially a great deal, but people in Los Angeles, New York, and Chicago, they're wanting to know what's happening for the bee populations there. So this is another thing that kids put their data into this thing so that they know what's going on. Firefly watch, same thing. Sunflower watch, same thing. So it doesn't have to be all animals, all sorts of things. This journey north at the monarchs, everybody know how the monarchs migrate? Everybody know? They migrate from Mexico and they go north, and so this is, you see them, and then your data becomes part of that, and they watch the migration of these monarchs. It's called the journey north, so a lot of these out there. The kids keep a log, they put it on the computer. There's people doing fungus, there's people doing all sorts of stuff. There's tons of this stuff. Don't write it all down and be different by the time you're teaching, but just make sure you get your kids involved in something like this. It's all about the computer. Oh, this is my favorite one. So the moon has craters on it. Everybody know about the moon craters? And NASA has taken, I don't know, just pick a big number, like 1 million pictures of the moon. And they want to map all the craters. Well, there's not somebody sitting in NASA or JPL doing this. It's people like you and your kids who are doing this. And the way this works is they give you a picture. You take your cursor over to the crater, and you go like this to make the hole as big as the crater is. Then you hit done, and you move over to the next one. You make it that big. And every time you move the cursor and click on it, then that gives a lot land. So now we've got that where it is, and every time you make the circle big, then it tells how big it is. This is how they are mapping the, pick a number, 5 bazillion craters on the moon. It is not some scientist sitting in a lab. It is people like you and me and their kids. Kids really like this one. one, is that if you just click on this stuff, it's all very intuitive. And then you get another picture, done, get another picture, done, and you just, we're mapping it in that way. It's a lot of fun for the kids. Solar storm, same kind of thing, so kids are watching that stuff. Ants and, it just goes on and on and on and on and on, watching where these ants are all around the world, so it's not just US kids doing this, this is very global in its nature. There's things about rivers, here's a whale, everybody know that the whales sing, and a lot of voices, and so scientists put these hydrophones, recorders basically, underneath the water, and record what the whales are saying. Well, they have like 10,000 hours of this stuff. So all of these recordings, and they need people to listen to those recordings and record what the songs are. So the kids, they digitize them and they learn to record the kind of noise, that's not nice, the song, if you will, the kind of noise, I guess, sounds that the whales are making. You need people to listen to these recordings. So any of your kids who are into music or sound, they want to see what's going on with these whales. They hear it, would you just please do this 5 minutes, here's another 5 minutes, here's another 5 minutes. There's just no way any scientist can go through those hours and hours and hours and hours of recordings. So this is another really big project for a lot of kids. And there's directories to go to these things on Citizen Science Central when you're ready, when you have kids, or if you'd like to do it for yourself now. A lot of this is open to the public. It's not just for kids, it's open to everybody. They're desperate for people to help them out. So if you have any interest in any of these yourself, here's a huge list of them. I got to here, I'm only at the B's right here, so you keep scrolling down through all these things to find something that you're interested in or that your students are interested in. The Citizen Science Alliance is the same kind of thing. There's using the Hubble spacecraft, everybody. They're pictures of the universe and finding galaxies, because there's so many of them. The universe is this massive thing. The Hubble's taking pictures and pictures and pictures, and there's not one scientist sitting there doing it. They depend on people to do that. So they're doing that, and again, looking at the whale pictures, whale FM, that's about the whale sound. So a lot of these things, SciStar is another one. I'm talking too long, so I'm going to quit. There's a sea turtle thing, bat survey, world birds. It goes on and on and on. So it's a way to get our kids involved. Scientific American also has some citizen science things. It's a way to get our kids involved and use this technology of the computers, either with sound, pictures, or usually pictures, sometimes satellite, and the kids or they observe themselves and then they record in their notebook and send in the data. It's a really great way to get the kids involved in stuff. So I hope that you will do that. And it's definitely the use of technology. NGSS, are you all NGSS'd out to the death? Okay, don't want to even talk about this. Anyway, there's all of the NGSS stuff. It's all aligned to that. So if you do something, there's all the NASA coming. I don't even go through it. Before I quit, I'll tell you 2 more fun projects that I have. And maybe your own students, your own children, or your own children's classrooms might be interested in this. They can also design a flag, and I'll fly it in front of the penguins, and we all sign it, have the scientists all sign it, and then we send it back to you. So they make the flag themselves, and then I put it up in front of the penguins to take a picture, and they get a certificate, and then the flag comes back. There's some pictures of them flying, so that's part. So that's art. Anybody into art? Anybody going to teach art? So, or geography? So make us a flag and send it down, and then we'll send it back. Or a postcard, so the kids can make it. Postcards, so here we are, an art project again. And I get kindergarten kids. I mean, look at this thing. It's first grade, probably. A little older here, maybe in the 6th or 7th, maybe 8th grade here. I don't know. I get a lot of stuff. But kids make a penguin postcard. They self-address and stamp it. It's domestic postage, so it's like 32 cents or whatever it is. Then the teacher sends them all down to me, and then I send them back through the post office down there so it gets the Antarctic postmark on it. I also put penguin stamps all over or answer the questions that they have. So this is a project for a lot of kids. And if you're not teaching, you're student teaching, and anybody can do this. You don't have to be a scientist.
Yeah.
Summer project. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Or if you just wanna do it with your own kids or group of people, I don't care, I'll take anything.
Yeah.
But I will not send back a commercial postcard, so you have to make it yourself. The easiest way is those pre-stamped ones you get at the post office that are blank on one side, and then you just address the side with the stamp, draw a penguin on the other side, set it down. As domestic postage, it costs like $1 to send a